Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Calgary Business Podcast, powered by Sonic Coaching. I'm your host, Oliver Basner. I'm really pleased today to have an entrepreneur with me. Her name's Kelly Long. She's the co-founder, along with her husband, Peter, here in Calgary. She's also the CEO of a company called Noble Premium Bison. And her background includes brand building, sales, ranching, expert logistics, category creation. I could go on and on forever, but I won't. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Wow.
There's a lot going on there. We have a lot to talk about today. So, by the way, is it Bison or Bison? Because I've heard both.
Well, so have I, and I say it both ways, I think.
Oh, do you?
Bison and Bison.
Okay,
yeah,
there we go.
Bison. Bison is the true scientific name.
There we go. Excellent. So if you're listening out there, now you know the right name for it anyway. So let's talk about where it all started. Let's talk about your younger years, because you didn't grow up in ranching. And so tell me about your childhood, and did you have any siblings, and what was that like?
No, I didn't grow up in Bison. I grew up in Toronto, I have 4 kids, and spent a lot of our summers in Muskoka. My father had a printing company. It was a family business. And I met a guy that had a motorcycle, and I got into motorcycle riding and ended up working for Harley Davidson for 10 years. I'm giving you the very accelerated version.
Yeah.
I ended up working for Harley Davidson for 10 years, and through that job, I met another guy that had a bison ranch. And here I am.
Here you are. Excellent. That is a very abbreviated version. So your siblings are all still in Toronto?
My siblings are all still in Toronto, and in fact, I just had my brother came out and went skiing with me on Easter weekend. It was
Excellent.
great.
How was the snow?
Actually, it was wonderful. We had snow one day while we were skiing and sunshine the next day, and we were at the lake most of the time, but it was lovely.
Excellent. So Harley Davidson. So, really, if I think about that, you went from one really male-dominated industry, right, of motorcycles, to another really dominated male industry of, call it ranching, right? So how you managed to hold your own and get noticed in those industries and hold your own, with a lot of what I would call men in that industry.
Take a deep breath and put on my big girl boots.
What does that mean exactly?
I don't run into any issues that often. I'm more about staying focused and getting results. So I find it also helpful that, because you get noticed being a woman in a male-dominated industry. So it's not hard. I don't feel intimidated or anything, because I think a lot of people expect that when you talk about male-dominated industries.
Yeah.
Harley Davidson was looking for more female ridership when I started working for them. And we're going back a long way. I bought my first motorcycle in 1983, Harley, and I started working for them in 1991. And they wanted women. They wanted more women involved in the industry. They wanted more women riding. And I happened to meet the president of Harley Davidson one day. And it was actually kind of fun, because my mom had a design studio on Yonge Street in Toronto, and I was working for her. And I rode my motorcycle up to the front of her studio. And I got off my motorcycle. I had my leather coat on with my helmet and a pair of jeans. And when I got off, I took my helmet off. I had hair back then, this is back in, would have been the late 80s, down to my waist. And I opened up my coat, and I had a pink flowery dress on underneath, and it rolled down, and then I got my jeans off and went into work. And the person my mom was consulting with that day was the president of Harley Davidson.
Oh, interesting.
And he thought, this is really neat. Here's a woman that rides a motorcycle, as a girl back then, that doesn't look like a woman, or doesn't look like somebody that rides a motorcycle.
Right.
And so I got to know him over the years. And then back in 1991, they were looking to fill some roles, and he called me and said, come and work with me. So
amazing how things work out sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So do you still ride Harleys?
We do still ride. We just sold
You
our
and your husband?
motorcycles. Yeah, we do still ride. And that's how we met, was through Harley Davidson, and both riding Harleys. And I started working for Harley Davidson in 91, met Peter in 98, and here it is, 2026. And we just sold our motorcycles. Will we get new ones? Probably.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Awesome. So it sounds like you grew up in a pretty entrepreneurial environment, like between your dad and your mom. And, so, it was probably meant to be at some point you'd have your own business. Having sort of worked at Harley, I mean, there's an organization, very large organization. They have structure and probably systems and processes in place. What did you learn at Harley that you carried forward into your own business?
That was such a great experience working for Harley Davidson. So I worked for the Canadian arm of Harley Davidson, and they were really big in management structure. And they back then, I think the company name was Managerial Design, or Management by Design, or Managerial Design. And it was very similar to the Rockefeller habits, scaling up, the Verne Harnish model, that sort of thing. I really enjoyed that system. And it was I liked having that structure and the rhythm and the accountability and the goals. It was just a good, solid organizational structure. The other thing is that the president and the CEO at the time both were members of YPO. And that's how I got introduced to peer groups.
Okay.
And that stayed with me. So I like management systems. Rockefeller Habits happens to be my favorite system just because of the simplicity of it. I like peer groups. So yeah, I joined Entrepreneur Organization, and now I'm with McKay CEO Group, and I like those groups. So those are things that stayed with me, is that, bringing that structure in. I guess it's strategy. It all boils back to strategy. Yeah. So when I was there, I met with a guy that was involved with the structure, and he said to me one day over lunch, "Strategy, Kelly, strategy, strategy, strategy." So, and that setting strategy I'm a bit of a strategy geek, but it stayed with me over time.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk about strategies. Let's talk about specifically your current company, your current business, Noble Premium Bison. You'd already built a great bison business in the past, which you sold. What brought you back? What inspired you to do this all over again?
My first response is insanity.
Glutton for punishment.
Glutton for punishment. When you introduced me, my husband was the co-founder of the first company. I got a phone call in 2015, I think. And Noble started in 2016. So around 2015, I got a phone call from a gentleman named Doug Griller. And he's actually our business partner now, him and his wife, Anna. And Doug called me up and said, "I have animals, you have the marketing and the sales. Let's do something." So we set out. It was, in the beginning, it wasn't that well organized. It was like, let's try this. In 2016, we did 4 productions. That's not a lot. We did 4 productions, and we shipped all of the product over to Europe. And then we just focused on, okay, this is working. Let's focus on Europe as a model, get everything straight, get everything built, get our processes worked out. It might seem like quite a leap for some people to say you went from harvesting animals and could sell right in Canada to all the way to Europe, all of it, all at once. But we knew that market, and there was opportunity in that market right away. So in 2016, we started with 4 productions that year. In 2017, we did 1 every 4 weeks. No, 1 a month. So that was 12 productions. Then 2018, we did every 4 weeks, which made 13. So still not that big. But then in 2018, we decided, let's formalize this. Created the brand Noble. Decided how we're going to expand into the Canadian market now that we had our processes together, and actually sat down and drew a plan with somebody who's now our brand director. She helped me with coming up with some of the modeling that we were doing. And we decided that we were going to hit Canada a little bit backwards. A lot of companies start with food service, and we decided we were going to go after retail first.
Retail first, okay.
Yeah. And we made a plan on how we were going to approach the retail market, what it was going to look like, what the brand was going to look like, what the packaging was going to look like. And that took time. We started that in 2018. In 2019, at the beginning of 2018, and in February 2019, I had a meeting with Costco, And then it was supposed to be actually in December of 2018, but they had to reschedule it. So we had that in early 2019. Had a couple of meetings with them through 2019. And then I had a meeting we also set up meetings with Sobeys and a few other retailers through the year. And by the end of the year, by October, Sobeys was locked in. November, Costco was locked in. And we started shipping in January.
So you went from zero to some probably pretty significant volume pretty quick then.
Very quickly. We were starting with, Sobeys started us with just Western Canada. And I can remember it was February and I was in Amsterdam and I got a phone call and it said, Sobeys is going national. So I had to move pretty quickly. Yeah. And Costco started with the same way. They started with just the Prairie region, and then they moved it to BC, and then they moved it to Quebec, and then Ontario. Like it just went boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So by the end of the year, we were actually by the summer of 2020, we were national in the biggest retailers in Canada.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That took some effort.
It was fun. It was exciting. Yeah. It was nerve-wracking.
Of course.
If you remember what 2020 was, it was the start of the pandemic.
COVID.
And I remember when it happened and everything shut down, and I looked at Peter and I said, everything stops. We're like any external business we were doing, any building we were doing. And I said, I don't know how this is going to affect our business, what's going to happen.
None of us did at the time.
Yeah. And so I told him, I said, we got to just be careful here. Let's just regroup. Right. And pretty quickly we realized it was good it was good. We were one of the few that it was really good for our business.
Because of course people were barbecuing at home, cooking at home more, and so it would have helped the business, right?
And the day before they declared it a pandemic, we had signed the listing sheets at one of our food service operators, Cisco.
Wow.
It was the day before. So that was put on hold.
Everything worked out though.
But everything else worked out.
You know, you're a big promoter of regenerative ranching. So, for our listeners, what is that and why is it important?
A lot of people talk about sustainability, which is a great thing.
They do.
And sustainability is important, but sustainability is sustainable. Everything stays the same. Regenerative is getting better. It's improving. It's making the land where you are or whatever you're doing better. So Doug, who owns ranches in Saskatchewan, our business partner, he's got all the animals and he works on his land. We verify what we do. So we work with the Savory Institute to come in and they set benchmarks. So on 0, they set a benchmark of measurements, and then they come back annually and check to make sure we're doing what we say we're doing. They use leading and lagging indicators to measure the land, and they measure soil, they measure crop, they measure the microbiology, like not just microbiology, the soil, but insects, wildlife, that sort of thing. So the more diversification of the bugs, you need lots of bugs. Bugs are good. Dung beetles are good. It's all about the dung. It's how they create and make the soil better for getting more water capture and more carbon capture. So we do that in order to, it's regenerating. It's making the land that we're using better than it was before.
Right.
And it's good for the environment. It makes everything better.
So much better than sustainable,
so much better than
speak,
sustainable,
right?
Yeah. So regenerative is making it better. And it's an interest, big fan of Alan Savory for years. From when we had our first company, I've watched what he does and looked at what he does, and he's definitely an early mover in the regenerative movement.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing that, because I know that you've talked about it a lot, and it's important to you as well, and everything that you're doing in your industry. So, I barbecued. Just full disclosure, I barbecued some of your strip loin steaks on the weekend that I bought at a local grocery store. And I made some amazing steak sandwiches out of it for my family and, of course, all the other fixings. And so everything was absolutely delicious. We even fought over this, the leftover steak the next day almost, right? So, for the beef eaters out there though, how's Bison different? How's it different? And what's the trick to getting a great bison steak?
The trick to getting a great bison steak is don't overcook it.
Don't overcook it, yeah. Which I didn't.
Don't overcook it.
Yeah.
So
I had my thermometer with me, so.
If you like your meat well done, I encourage you to either eat one of our braising steaks that can be slow cooked and wet cooked for a while, but don't overcook it. Bison's really nutrient dense. It's higher in iron. It's got a different fatty acid profile than beef does, and it's leaner. It's much leaner. So it doesn't marble the same way, which is why the color looks a little bit different. It doesn't marble like beef does. So when you're shopping for beef, you're looking for a well-marbled piece of meat.
Always, right? You're looking for that fat in between, right?
Yeah,
but you don't get
not
that.
with bison. With bison, lean is the attribute. That's what gives it its flavor, because you're getting more of the flavor from the meat as opposed to from the fat. So it is different. It's more nutrient dense. You don't need as much of it to be satisfied. It's got a bit of a different mouthfeel because it's leaner. It's slightly richer and sweeter than beef, but it's got if you like beef, you'll love bison. It's slightly richer, it's slightly sweeter, but it's got a very similar flavor profile, so it doesn't take an adventurous palate to taste it. And a lot of people are afraid of it because they think it's gamey. Well, there's nothing gamey or wild
There's nothing about it, no.
Yeah, I always compare it, it's a cousin to beef. It's like turkey is to chicken.
Right.
So it's richer, sweeter, leaner. You'll love it. It's versatile. You can do everything with bison that you can with beef. And it cooks in much the same way, just don't overcook it.
Right.
So, low and slow, hot and fast, whatever method you like to use, just don't overcook it. Use a meat thermometer.
Yeah, that was my trick on the weekend, hot and fast. Like I had a very high temperature, got the sear on the steaks, and then, kept the flavor inside, and the moisture it was delicious.
That's how we cook it, is hot and fast. But I do a lot of braising at home as well. I like slow cooking.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. If you like your meat well done, then you get a nice moist piece of meat that's well done and a ton of flavor. Burgers are more forgiving. Burgers, you can cook them well. Like we recommend 160, but they're more forgiving than, say, a steak. If you overcook a steak, because it's high in iron, you'll pick up a richer, more irony flavor to it, and it's not gamey. It's more of an iron, because the iron, it's very high in iron, and the iron that flavor comes through.
Right. Well, long before you and I met, I remember. I have a great spaghetti sauce recipe, and I was using bison long before I even knew you, as opposed to beef, because I just really loved the flavor that came out of that. It was just a richer, deeper
it's
flavor.
subtle. It's not an in-your-face flavor change. No. It's a very subtle.
But it is. Yeah. It is like you said. It's like a more flavorful almost. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I put a ribeye steak in front of you and I didn't tell you what you were eating, you would just think it was the best darn steak you ever had. Why is this steak so amazing?
And if you put that in front of me, Kelly, I won't turn it down. Just so you know.
I should have brought some tomahawks. I have a freezer full of them.
That's great. Here's the big question, okay? Because people are confused out there. Bison or buffalo? What's the difference?
In North America, the term is interchangeable. So we've always known the North American buffalo.
Buffalo, that's what we knew,
the buffalo nickel, Buffalo Bill.
Right.
I think where the name came from is European explorers coming over hundreds of years ago, and they seen the bison and calling it le boeuf, and the which just got changed over time to buffalo. Now we use bison more often than buffalo, only to not confuse it with water buffalo, which is now available in North America.
Okay.
So India is the largest, I believe it's India, is the largest exporter of buffalo meat.
Right.
But that is not bison.
Right.
Again, a cousin like to beef, a cousin to bison, but it's not the same. So you have the Cape buffalo, the water buffalo, you've got the European buffalo, which is the Bison, but it's not the same. The species is bison, and that's what we know as the North American buffalo.
Right. Thanks for clarifying. Now everybody knows what to call it.
Everybody's a lesson.
Exactly. Everybody's educated. There's a couple of questions that I ask all my guests, so I want to jump into those. One of them is, if you think back, what do you wish someone would have told you at the start of your journey? Because we've got some listeners who are at the start of their journey, their entrepreneurial journey or their leadership journey. What do you wish somebody would have told you when you got going? What would you tell your younger self?
I actually did get some good advice way early on. And
Excellent. Are you
lived
willing to
by it.
share?
Yeah, I will. When we first got started in the bison industry, doing the meat, so I met Peter and he had a ranch, but we started selling meat back in the early 2000s. And we had a fantastic mentor, a guy named Gary Haley, and he was in the meat industry. And in fact, he was so wonderful to us that he gave us offices in his offices so he could coach us and mentor us. And it was 2003, and if you may not remember, but that was when we had that case of BSE. We had a full truck of fresh meat on its way down to Whole Foods in the United States. And back then, Whole Foods wasn't in Canada at all. It was only in the U.S., and this was a big deal. And the borders closed before the truck got there, and we couldn't cross. And I remember walking through the office and looking at Gary and thinking, this is it, this is it. And he goes, Kelly, you're persistent, you'll find a way. And I remember walking away and thinking, he's right. And we did, we figured it out, we dealt with the truck of fresh meat. You know, time went on, the borders reopened, Whole Foods was still there.
Right.
But the thing is that the challenge opened up new opportunities for us that we didn't know were there unless that challenge happened. So because we were persistent, we just kept looking for new ways. We didn't just step back and give up. We kept looking for new ways to deal with everything that was in front of us. And that time of BSE was tough because we were relying on export markets.
Right.
And we couldn't ship. So it was a tough thing, but you know, it opened up. We found new markets in Canada. We found new opportunities in Canada that we hadn't really looked at before. And it just pushed us to come up with new solutions. So it was being persistent.
Being persistent. Yeah, because I mean, easily it sounds like that could have put you out of business had you not taken that advice.
It could have, and we were lucky we could, we had somebody that we could rely on for some advice and for some tools and for introductions and that. But it was that persistence. It was just every challenge unlocks, it opens new opportunities.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it in the moment.
No.
It doesn't feel like it in the moment. But it is definitely, you just got to keep thinking this is just a chapter. It's not the whole story.
Right. That's a great advice. Just keep going, right? Find a way.
Keep going, find a way. Put one foot in front of the other and keep going. We've had, there's been lots of opportunities in this business. We had some big challenges over the years and just keep going. Find it opens up new opportunities.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great. The other question I always ask, and I'm in the professional development space, coaching and leadership training, and I really believe personal development and professional development are one and the same. What's been one of those, books or tools that you've used that you could recommend to the listeners?
I mentioned this already while we've been talking is, for a book that really, that I really lean on is Rockefeller Habits.
Yeah. Great book, by the way.
And he's got, Vern wrote a new book since then, Scaling Up, actually a couple new books, I think, but I just like Rockefeller Habits for its simplicity.
Yes.
Peer groups, and I mentioned that too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a strong believer in peer groups, and right now I am with McKay CEO Group, and I think it's so wonderful to sit around the table with people that are experiencing different things, sharing those experiences, and I think it helps you to see around the corners faster, if that makes sense.
Right.
So you're not alone, you got people to lean on. You got people that might have experienced what you're experiencing. Not too long ago, I got some great tools out of a couple of my mates and my CEO mates. So it helps you, it gives you new avenues. It's kind of like a mentorship program, a reverse mentorship program. You show up and you share your experiences, they share theirs, and
they become almost a little bit of an advisory board in a way, right? Peer support, but you're getting ideas from them, from their learnings, and you're sharing your learnings, right?
100%. It's, you get to bounce off ideas off of them. I don't just talk to them the once a month that I'm with them. I talk to them in between, share ideas, bounce things off of each other. And it's a fantastic tool. So, and I've been in peer groups.
Sounds like most of your career, right?
As soon as I qualified for EO, I joined and then left EO and then joined they're all great groups.
Yeah.
All the peer groups out there. I just think they're important.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. One final question I have, because we're getting close on time. So, what's the next big idea? What's on the horizon for Noble?
Right now, we're working on some new relationships that we have. We did a big wholesale change back in 2024. We completely changed our business model at the end of 2024. And we've been working through that all through 2025. And now in 2026, 2025 was dealing with that big change.
The change, yeah.
2026 was taking it to a new level. We're starting to work with new co-packers and we've got some new relationships, so we're solidifying those, and it's pretty exciting, some of the things that we've been doing.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. It just doesn't stop.
Well, good luck with all of that. Sounds like you're not ready to stop it anytime soon anyway. So.
Well, nothing in the near term, that's for sure.
That's great. Well, Kelly, you've shared first of all, a lot about yourself, but a lot of nuggets and wisdom today. So thank you for that. And I agree. I mean, as you know, I chair a couple of McKCO forums, and so peer groups. Vern Harness's book, Rockefeller Habits, is an excellent book. I have it on my shelf. So thanks for sharing all the nuggets and the wisdom today.
My pleasure.
So you've been listening to the Calgary Business Podcast, powered by Sonic Coaching. And I've been talking to Kelly Long, who's not only the co-founder, but the CEO of Noble Premium Bison here in Calgary. And if you haven't had a chance to try one of her steaks, you have to go out and get one. Thanks, everyone.